All right, Jordan. Riley to ECU. Obviously, his name has been dropped. The ECU coach has obviously been fired. Garrett Riley's name has been a hot ticket item since that job opened up as a potential hire for ECU. Obviously, he's got some history at that university. That's kind of where he got his start in the coaching. So he does have some connections there. But the main question is, will Garrett Riley entertain this job? You think about the pros and the cons of this position, right? Obviously, it'd be a huge opportunity for him. It's his first head coach opportunity. Obviously, you cannot minimize that in any way. He's got history with the university. It's where he got his start as a college football coach. So that obviously means something. I'm sure he has relationships with a lot of individuals there. You think about some of the cons, it's kind of a lateral move as far as pay. Obviously not position. You're obviously running your own program. But as far as how well Clemson is compensating Garrett Riley right now, he's not going to get much more at ECU, if any more, being the head coach there with a lot more responsibility. The changing landscape in college football, that can't be underplayed. When you're talking about taking a position at a non-Power 4 conference, you're going to be even more limited, especially with the transfer portal and all these Power 4 conference teams poaching the players that you do end up developing into special players, right? So that's something to think about. And he's just kind of hitting his stride with Clemson, right? So those are my just kind of quick pros and cons on this ECU job. Obviously, he was asked about it in his interview this week, and he gave the typical Clemson coach response that they all give. I'm focused on where my feet are planted. I'm focused on, the Louisville game and game planning and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on Garrett Riley's name and his connection to this ECU job?
I mean, yeah, you basically hit on it. Obviously Riley does have, connections there and a history there. Being, him and his brother, both. So, there are a lot of ties to that university. But you mentioned, I think the biggest thing is that, it's not really a bump in pay grade. Mike Houston was making just a little bit over $2 million a year. Garrett Riley is making right around $2 million a year. As an offensive coordinator, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. From a compensation standpoint, at least, you wouldn't be taking much of a pay bump, if any. And with regards to ECU as a job itself, like if you've looked at, their results over the last, 10, 15 years, it has not been good. They've had good teams in the past. This is my mom's alma mater. I have a lot of love for that school. My favorite NFL player of all time, Chris Johnson, went there. Yeah. But they have not invested in that program as much as even some of the schools in their own conference. And it'd be a tough job to go there and win and turn around. And so there are a lot of things that just, don't. If I'm Garrett Riley, I'm definitely waiting for a better opportunity. And, you're at a school like Clemson where your profile is about as high as it can get from a visibility and stature standpoint to springboard into a head coaching job. So I don't really take much, to these, hey, anything can happen in this world, but I think Garrett is here to stay at least for this year and potentially. I feel pretty confident he'll be your offensive coordinator next year too. But that's neither here nor there. That's another conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you can never say never when it comes to things like this. It's always tempting when you're a coordinator, regardless of where you're at and how well you're compensated. It's always tempting to get offered a job like this and to think about running your own program and doing things your way and, things you would do. That's always an exciting opportunity, and I'm sure it is for Garrett Riley. And I think 100% he will eventually be a head coach. I just don't think this is the job for him. I know the connections there from, where he got his start into college coaching and all of that. I know the history there, but, you point out the pay. It's a non-Power 5 job. I just don't see him leaving Clemson as well as he's compensated as the offensive coordinator here. I don't see him leaving for a non-Power 5 job. That's just my opinion. I could be ultimately proven wrong, but that's just what I think about it. No shade to ECU, no shade to that program whatsoever. I just don't think he would leave for an opportunity such as that. But again, never say never. But we'll see. But I think he's really starting to hit his stride at Clemson, and I think he's at least here one more season. After that, hey, it's anybody's guess.
Yeah.